All right, welcome to Conversations with Cubit, and thank you for joining me tonight, and thanks for supporting these weekly conversations. Listen, tonight is going to be fun. I say that with great confidence because I have a couple of my favorite people in the whole town joining me tonight. So not only that, but we are back at Big Smoke Cigar Lounge, hanging out at a place that's just for fun and good for conversation. Again, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. Maybe, just maybe, it's your first time joining the conversation. And if so, welcome to the family. Yes, we consider you family. Now, if you are a regular and loyal viewer, thanks for all of the words of encouragement that you send to my inbox. Keep those coming. They are very encouraging to me and my team. Now, you can also join us live on YouTube as we speak. You can find all of our past conversations on my YouTube channel. Just look up Conversations with Cubit. And once you get there, please subscribe. Please hit the like button. This helps us grow these conversations. It'd be a great help to us. Now, once you get there, you can find some of the past conversations, lots of amazing people we've talked to. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. But right now, I need you to share this conversation. Don't keep this conversation to yourself. It's far too important. Share this with your community. Now, have you heard of Green Pasture Studios out? Of course you have. If you watch this show all the time, you know, because that's our regular place. Green Pasture Studios is the place that gives us a home week after week. It is a full-fledged movie production place. They make commercials. They have a film academy. They do all kinds of things out there, and it's right here in the metropolitan area, right out in Spencer, Oklahoma. Look them up online. You'll be glad you do. They give our home a place of home every week. Now, if you're wondering where we are tonight, we took the show on the road. We do this all the time, but we are in Northeast Oklahoma City at a Black-owned and Black-operated cigar lounge called Big Smokes. This lounge is located at 3719 Spring Lake Drive. They have created a comfortable, sometimes relaxing, sometimes energetic atmosphere for those who love cigars and for those people that are new to the cigar life. You know what I mean? My friends and I love a place where we can have good conversation and a little sip and smoke. I don't want y'all to think. We were here a couple of weeks ago at Big Smoke with Barry Russell. It was so cool, so we decided to come back for tonight's very important conversation. All right? It's important, and I want to tell you, I have not publicly tackled the Tyre Nicholas incident. I just haven't talked about it publicly. But my guest recently held a men's group conversation where this incident was front and center. It was powerful, and so I asked them to come tonight and unpack what they learned from the men that was in that conversation that day. But before we jump into all of that, I need to share with you my three simple goals for these weekly conversations. There's only three. One, I want to add value to people and to my community. Two, I want to inspire you to believe in what people and communities can become when we're willing to work together. And last but not least, love people, period. No strings attached, just love people. All that means is I want you to be inspired, and I want you to get useful information and resources, and I want to celebrate individuals, groups, and organizations who are making a positive impact on our community. Every conversation will be about inspiration, information, and hope. Okay? Now, joining me tonight are my homies, Reverend Michael McDaniel and Reverend A. Byron Coleman III. These two gentlemen need no introduction, really, because they are very active leaders in Oklahoma City and really across the state. But both of them have been in ministry 25 plus years. Reverend Coleman is the pastor of the Fifth Street Baptist Church, and Reverend McDaniel is the pastor of Northeast Missionary Baptist Church, where he has the very difficult job of pastoring me and my family. Good luck with that. All right, so, and I'm not going to give you their very robust bio because it would just take too long and I would miss something that's very important, but what I'm gonna do is let them have the opportunity to give highlights of their bio, the things that they think that's important. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the leaders of OKC, Northeast OKC, across the state, Reverend Coleman and Reverend McDaniel. Who wants to start? Do we want to start? Reverend Coleman, why don't you go? You're a first time guest. He's probably been on 18 times. He just fills in for any gaps that I might have. Right. So tell us what we need to know.
Really, I'm just the pastor of Fifth Street Baptist Church. Been there 25 years. Teach at the University of Oklahoma, adjunct professor out there, and married to Dr. Sherry Coleman. 25 years, 2 boys, Chandler and Cortland, 22 and 19. And just glad to be here. I'm elated that you invited me finally to be on your show.
The most important thing is you're the husband of the Dr.
You better believe it. You better believe it.
That's the most important
thing. You better believe it.
Right. I was hoping you start with that. That's right. Come on, Mickey.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, listen, glad to be here and be back again. Pastor Northeast. Listen, now you worked with my wife as a doctor at OKCPS, and I'm the dad of Tevin, Jaden, and Leah, and obviously I'm not as smart as Byron Coleman, but if he just lets me fly on his coattails, I'll go as far as he takes me, people. I love you, baby.
Don't believe none of that.
Well, tonight I'm flying on the residue of wisdom right now. So I'm much wiser because I'm sitting at the same table with you.
Well, yeah, what they say, knowledge is that to identify that it is a mic. Wisdom says to speak in it.
Yes,
right?
yes.
I'm not sure I'm that wise.
There you go. All right, so I got some tough questions for y'all because you are so heavily educated and so wise and all that kind of stuff. And there's people from across the state that are watching that really may not know the black community like y'all know the black community, we know the black community. So I've got some questions just to test.
Yes.
Because everybody has some resemblance of a black card.
Yes.
And I'm here to revoke your black card if I have to. If I have to. Okay?
I want one that has money on it.
Yeah.
You can take
that I know I have to pay at the end of the month.
Right. All right, so fun question. Before we get into it, we're going to talk about Tyre Nicholas.
Sure.
And we're going to talk about the gathering that you all hosted, which was very, very powerful. But that's heavy. That's a heavy conversation. So I want to kind of lead into it in a light way. That's probably more for me than it is for you, because you guys carry heavy conversations every Sunday. So let me ask you this. Can you name 1, 2, 3 things that you saw in your mom's or your grandmother's kitchen that you expect to see or will see in any black kitchen you walk into in America?
You do one, I do one.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
So let's go back and forth.
Okay.
So let me say, first of all, a grease can that sits on the stove.
Fish grease.
Not fish grease.
Not fish grease. Just grease.
Fish grease?
You got to keep fried. Well, I'm from Chicago, so it's different. I'll tell you about that. Go ahead.
He's been in Oklahoma for 25 years.
Never forget where I come from.
I didn't say forget.
But
you got dual
the residue of Chicago.
You got dual citizenship. I don't care what you say.
Citizenship from Philadelphia too.
So I'm gonna say grease can with napkins or paper towels in the bottom.
It's that absorbed the little
grease.
rundown.
Yes.
So I would say a black skillet. That is a commonality in because you got to make it cornbread in it. You got to fry chicken, both hands. You got to do it.
So
black skillet.
So we got grease can,
and black
skillet. I want to say hot sauce.
Okay.
So if in fact you're sitting in the kitchen, and there is no hot sauce, there is an issue.
Somebody's on the way to the store.
Somebody's going to get some hot sauce.
Okay,
that's right.
Okay. So I would say if it's hot sauce, a black skillet, and what's the first thing you said?
Grease can.
I would say an empty pot. We didn't put pots underneath. We put pots on the stove. Am I right? I didn't know what that was until I got grown putting it underneath. My grandmother kept pots on the stove.
Listen. There's that drawer on the range.
Yeah.
That comes out.
Yeah.
Who knew that was storage area?
I didn't know it was a drawer. I didn't know it was a drawer.
That's a storage area.
Right.
Well, so if we got all of those, then I know what we said earlier. But here's what I'll say, and that is, I gotta say this: you gotta have cornbread.
Always.
Like, I don't know if there were many meals that I've eaten on a Sunday
without cornbread.
Or even during the week, that there was no cornbread. Whether that was hot water cornbread or whether that was Jiffy cornbread.
That's funny because when I grew up, cornbread only went with certain meals. But when I got married, my wife will put cornbread on any meal.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, okay, I guess that's
think
just
that's how
something.
it was
But,
raised, yeah.
but I guess that's a thing. Yeah, but cornbread.
And
was
so
with
you got to
certain-
remember, you all are from this part. I was raised in Chicago.
In Chicago.
Yeah.
So some of those traditions from the South migrate to the North, and they still exist. Those are the commonalities.
Yep, absolutely.
Those are the commonalities. Now I gotta add this. Now where I'm from, this is going to, even my wife who's from Philadelphia, it would cause confusion for her. On Fridays, my mother would make catfish and spaghetti.
Catfish and
Always,
spaghetti.
those two.
Yeah.
I
and
love it.
people
They go
here,
together.
but people here didn't really understand why I would put those two together. But that was a staple on Friday.
Yeah.
Put catfish in, and nobody understood. They were like, "What are you doing?"
It was not a thing here. We
Really?
picked it. No, it wasn't a thing. But I think it's here now. But that was not.
Okay.
Now, I wouldn't say catfish, but I'll say chicken and spaghetti.
Chicken and spaghetti
Oh,
for
no.
sure.
Because there's a time that we ate fried chicken and spaghetti,
Same meal.
same meal.
Okay.
Same meal, together.
Okay.
Touching.
And cornbread.
And cornbread. Y'all, what y'all did not say is pepper sauce.
Yeah.
You didn't have no idea what. You ate greens.
No hablo español. I don't know what you're talking about.
Chicago.
I didn't know
Don't
pepper sauce.
comprende.
Somebody put in the comments.
I don't even know what that looks
explain
like. I don't even
pepper
know what
sauce-
that looks like.
It's this glass jar that has peppers in it that has this liquid, and somebody's uncle is the only one that uses it. So it just sits there.
And it was pepper sauce.
It's called pepper sauce. It's
Never-
very
I don't
hot.
even know what it is.
You shake it out like hot sauce, but it's kind of a clear. You wouldn't see it when you put it on. You don't see it. It blends into pepper sauce, man.
Okay.
It goes
I'm gonna
on,
bring you some pepper
It
sauce.
goes,
I don't
it goes
know.
on greens.
It goes on greens.
It's almost like pickled okra.
Thank you.
Man, you
Pastor
would tell us
Daniel.
about. Would you tell
Oh
the
my
people about the
God.
pepper? Would you
Oh,
tell the
you
people
want me
about
to
that?
Listen, as I shared with you, I had a member church, faithful member would bring
Beloved sister.
beloved sister would bring Dr. Sherry and I canned food, and I did not know what canned food was. I had no idea. She kept bringing this stuff, and my wife and we're not eating it. I refuse to eat anything that's not from the grocery store that doesn't have an FDA label on it. That's what I believe. That's just, I was raised like that. So when literally she brought some pickled okra, it sat in the refrigerator for like 8 months, 9 months. And one day I was starving and had no food in the refrigerator. Go to the refrigerator, and reluctantly, I twist this, and I'm like, why is this taking so long? Why is this
It's gotta pop,
it's-
dude.
I mean, and I heard, that's what I heard. When I heard that, I reached inside, I was like, Lord, please, Lord, whatever you got to do, keep me, and I ate it, and man, that was the best experience of my life.
Oh, man.
I said, this is just nothing but God right here. And since then, I love pickled okra. I really do love pickled okra.
You know, I think all of that pickled stuff, they jar it, and they don't put a date on it. It can sit there.
Now
it's
she
ready-
put a
it's
date
ready.
on. Now she put a date on her stuff.
She put a date
which
when she
preached,
canned
by
it.
the way.
She might have put it, but it ain't no expiration date.
Right, it was a date that she canned it.
Yeah,
It wasn't
no
a date.
But, and I know we're not going there, but this speaks to the depth and the resourcefulness
Yes.
Oh man.
of our community
Yes. Yes.
to do something like that.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It was,
I had no clue what that was. From the preserves to the beets.
oh,
Like
yeah.
pickled beets.
Oh,
I
my
didn't know
gosh.
what
My
pickled beets
mom
were.
was a beets person.
didn't know what-
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody eat the beets.
Yeah.
I thought
My
that's just
mom used to
decoration.
love them on salads.
Pickled beets?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got me on that
I'll
one.
bring you some of those too.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
They don't expire, so I know I can find some.
FDA, brother. FDA.
So really what we just said is that it doesn't have to have a label
Doesn't have to have a label.
to be good.
be
That's
good.
a broader
That's a
conversation.
larger
trying to preach, so
conversation.
I feel like y'all just
It
wrote
doesn't
that.
have to have a label to be
It
good.
doesn't have to have a label to
And
be
you
good.
may delay the blessing.
Hey, oh.
Okay. All right. So I want to know this. I've been dying to ask this, and I'm gonna ask y'all live on the air, live on the air, because this happens to police officers all the time. And you know, I used to be a police officer.
Oh,
Before,
that small
yeah,
thing.
Yeah.
That little small. I used to be. But
100 years.
these people do things and say things, kind of odd things around us all the time, and it's all based on our profession. I want to know one thing people need to stop saying or doing around you just because you're a pastor?
You go first, because
So I will share with you real quick. So my wife and I this is years ago, we were shopping at the grocery store. And I ran into one of my members, and my member said to me, Pastor Coleman, you shop for your own groceries? I said, I want to eat, don't I?
Right.
I said, what do you think this is? I'm not, whatever image or perception she had of pastors, it was that they don't get their own groceries. I was like, what are you saying? So that, I never forget that incident, because in my mind, it was like, you created this idea of a pastor that doesn't shop for his own groceries. And that's just not the case. I shop for my
who
groceries.
buys them?
I was like,
I live in grocery stores.
right, I was like, I don't get it. So that was my one incident. That's all I could think of at that moment.
Right, yeah.
For me, it would be, I'm in 7-Eleven one day, and I see one of my members, and they're buying a lottery ticket. Pastor, I didn't just buy it. No, you did. I saw you buy it.
Right.
It's fine. Will you be offended if I buy one?
Oh, you asked? Yeah, because I wouldn't ask. I just bought it.
No, but and here's the deal. I've not ever bought, but I'm just saying, you don't have to explain something.
Right.
They always, yeah.
You don't have to
Right.
do that, because that's what you do. That is, we've made so many things sinful, so to speak, to use that word, right? We've made these things wrong, and so to do them in front of someone, you gotta apologize. No, you in the store,
Right.
You were coming here to do it, then just buy it. And so,
But once again, that's perception.
It is
It's
perception.
the perception is what you created in your own
were
mind.
you breaking the law?
Right.
You weren't.
Right. You weren't stealing something from the
You
store.
were not stealing. So that's the thing when people begin to be, oh, I'm sorry. No, that's you. It's you.
Right.
It's what you do. So don't
Buy
don't
your
ex-
pastor a ticket.
Yeah. Put my name on it just in case it hits.
Right.
So you know it's mine.
Tons of assumptions go along
Yeah.
with whatever profession that your title is, all that kind of stuff. I don't even want to go into the police officer ones, but here's the one. But trying to segue into our conversation today. What is it that you love about being a black man?
It is too voluminous to say on this. It's too voluminous.
That's a super intellectual. Too voluminous.
It's too
Hold on. Google.
Voluminous. Siri, what does voluminous mean?
Oh, you professor said.
It would take too much time. I am a believer. Pastor McDaniel and I have gotten even closer over these past months. I'm a believer in always honoring and valuing the legacy of where we come from. I do it every day. Honor. The best thing for me about being a black man, it's not just being a father to 2 boys or a husband to my wife. It is raising my family to always honor the legacy that we come from. And our legacy is rich and deep. That's what I love about being a black man.
Yeah.
Is that I never forsake that. I never walk away from it. I never let that go. I live with that every day.
Right.
And my children and my church that I pastored for 25 years, they know that to the marrow that's in my bones. That I'm always going to honor that legacy. Always going to honor that tradition, that custom, and those values that we got that made us who we are today.
For me, I've discovered that the thing about being a black man is that we are the most vilified and we're the most wanted.
Same time.
Explain
The paradox
most
of being a black man.
Yeah.
It is such a paradox in the sense that they hate us
and they love us.
and they love us.
Yeah.
There's nothing more mesmerizing than a black man. For black people
Yes.
and for
Everybody
the
else.
mainstream culture.
Yeah.
It is, you get to be something that is the center of hatred
Yeah.
and the center of love.
Wow. Never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Since I was a young administrator at Oral Roberts University, I discovered that we live with our feet in two worlds as a black man.
You know, that's the
I used to always
double
call it-
consciousness. You know, that's the double.
I call it
wisdom.
dual citizenship.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I love about one of the things.
Sure.
Yeah, like I say, it's deep. It's a deep
Yeah.
thing. But one of the
It's
things
voluminous.
I can't re-say it. First, my parents told me, never say something you can't spell.
Oh, I can spell it. Oh, I can spell it.
So I was going to say, it's a long story.
It's a long story. Yeah.
But what I'm going to say is that it's being able to manage how you feel and how you think with how people feel and think about you, and being able to do that 24/7, all the time, and live in both worlds without damaging either one.
Hey, let me deviate.
Here
real
come-
quick.
Stop like that.
Here comes this
Stop like that.
radical.
No,
Go right ahead.
no.
Go right ahead.
And the wrestle of that is what Du Bois says at the beginning of Souls of Black Folk. There are two warring ideals. There are two consciousness, this double consciousness. It's the Negro over here, but it's also having to live, and he wrestles with that in 1920. 1920, wrestles with that. Here we are in 2023, and we're still wrestling with it.
Wow.
That's the struggle.
So let me say this, and I think what he alluded to earlier is how our friendship has just become strengthened over the last several months, is because he thinks differently than me. He's more liberal than me.
I'm not more liberal. I'm not more liberal.
I think
I'm
he
not,
is.
I'm not.
He has a more of a Afrocentric lens than me that I was unaware of within myself.
And that's not liberal.
Well, no.
not liberal.
I'm not talking about the Afrocentric lens
Okay.
that's liberal.
Okay.
I'm saying that via our relationship over the last little while, you've helped me to discover some things that were within me that I have really left dormant. And that's because I really feel like I've been assimilated into mainstream culture because of some of my life experiences.
Use that word, assimilation. Okay.
And so what I've grown to appreciate is to hear from him the value in being who I authentically am.
Ooh.
Because as a former athlete and as a former this or that, you find value in how people value you.
Right.
You don't necessarily have that intrinsic value.
Athletes do get a pass. Athletes get a pass.
No, so we have to be, but as Pastor McDaniels said, we have to be transparent, because the reason why the conversations between he and I began is because I was in certain men's settings around other white men, and we guys are talking about sports, and the conversation somehow, some way.
Please don't start it.
No. It would die. It would dove into talking about the NIL and how much they hated the NIL. Well, that was one conversation. Then I go to another place. A different group of men raised the same problem. I go to Pastor McDaniel and I said, I got to be honest with you, man. This is crazy. Everywhere I go, there's something going on. Well, Pastor McDaniel being the nice
I'm much more
Oklahoma guy, diplomatic guy.
You're from
all
Oklahoma.
Coleman, you all Coleman, you. Okay. Well, then he and I are together, and we're talking about everything else. There's a guy sitting behind us who sees him as an OU former athlete. He starts talking about how bad the OU football program is. Out of all the things he mentions the NIL. I turned to McDaniel, I said, isn't this funny? This is the third time somebody, and when the guy finally left, he answered, I said, Pastor McDaniel, I said, do you see there's a commonality? I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
There's a problem that exists between those individuals that perceive black male athletes one way, that perceive black economic wealth one way. And I said, there's a commonality. And that's how we really started engaging in conversation. One, two, for me, it's not I'm careful when you say liberal, because that is the language of those that are perpetrating this idea of being woke or anti-woke. So I'm very careful of that. I don't use that language, because that's their language in order to corrupt the system that's already been corrupted.
Ooh, okay. Y'all better share this conversation right now and back up about 15 seconds and get all of that.
But here's the deal. This is literally how we talk.
Every day, all the time.
Every time we
we get together.
I want to be in the car.
We just go back and forth about this
And
idea.
he has enlightened me because he does have that. He gets the pass. I've been in places, they've ignored me. Or I'll say out loud, you know he played football, right? And the minute I say that, I got guys that play Pee Wee football that think they can play with him.
Right.
They get up there, you play football? I played for the Little League. When that guy was like, I played Little League football. McDaniel say, Little League football. Man, I played the NFL.
Yeah. So y'all having these conversations, which
all the time.
All the time.
Yes.
And you recognize when Tyre Nicholas happened, you recognize that there was conversations happening amongst small groups of men.
Yeah.
And you decided to host a men's conversation centered on Tyre Nicholas and how that was being absorbed and how that was mentally impacting individuals. Tell me why you decided that that's needed to be done.
I'll share, but the reality is we sit and we have these conversations all the time. And I told Coleman, I was like, man, we need to have a conversation about this because, I think it's important. Secondly, I've been in these conversations about this resiliency conversation about trauma. And so this becomes a level of trauma that we as black men are experiencing, but we, in Coleman's words, we have not been provided the space to have these conversations openly and without judgment, without, pretense, all this kind of stuff. And so I believe that was the impetus really of deciding to have a conversation about Tyre Nicholas.
Yeah. And we chose a cigar lounge because we want to curate the experience, right?
It wasn't at the church.
No, it was at a cigar lounge because we wanted to curate the experience. We wanted guys to say, and then see our names and go, maybe we need to go to that. And then I've had men who could not come since then come say, man, I couldn't make it. Are you all gonna do that again?
Right.
So that was exciting for me because I think sometimes we get so litigious about being in church. And I'm like, yo, Pastor McDaniel, brother, I don't need that. Black men, brothers need to be in a space that's safe, that already to a certain degree meets their visceral needs, smoke a cigar, whatever that is, to be open and honest. And it was a great meeting. It was great. I thought we had a good, you came, you were awesome.
Oh man, yeah, and I had no idea that the conversation was going to start, and I knew that I wanted to have a sidebar conversation with both of you about this. I'm so gracious and so honored that you do it here live. But when you talked about how Tyre Nicholas seeing the video or knowing about the video made you feel in comparison to George Ford, talk about that.
Well, and I was sitting with Pastor McDaniel actually, and I said I just felt different because the emotion it elicited from me was different than when the incident happened with George Floyd. Part of that was rooted in the expectation of white police officers with black men. So that's one category. But when I saw these African-American men, I wasn't focused on the system. I wasn't focused on the uniform. I wasn't focused that they were police officers in a position of authority. I was focused that these was a black men who we all have commonalities. We all have things in common. So my question is, if we have all these things in common with each other, how can another black person do that to another black person? Regardless of the uniform, regardless of your position, regardless, how can someone who has a shared narrative, a shared experience, which we all do, how could you do that to that man? There's an expectation with the individual that did George Floyd. I got that. There's a history rooted. We have a history in this country of police brutality. It's rooted. The system is rooted in that. But how could black men do that to another black man? That's baffling to me.
So here's what I say. And to use the word assimilation, I think that, and I'm not an expert, and I don't have the scientific evidence but here it is, when you become a part of these institutions, you are indoctrinated into a culture.
Yeah.
And so even though we have a shared narrative and experience, what supersedes that in many of those persons is what I've been told I have to do, or this is how I have to police. Throw on top of that this Scorpion group has really been given carte blanche.
Right.
They've been given all kinds of freedoms to police their people
Right.
in a way that renders results, not questioning how they do it, not questioning the collateral damage that is left along the way of it, get us results. And so now when this faux pas becomes a public scene, now all of a sudden it's an issue. But they've been doing it for the longest time. And I honestly think you can't just view it from black men doing it to black men. I still think the influence of the system and the training is still prevalent in their actions.
Why won't you talk about the system? Why won't you reduce it to that part?
But and I'm saying there's categories, so I didn't say it's not. There's categories.
Yes.
But so what you're saying is which I think warrants a conversation of black people perpetuating white supremacy.
And we do it. We do it. But we do it subconsciously.
We do it all the time.
Yes,
we do it all the time.
This is a good teaching. Give an example, a practical example of black people pushing the can of white supremacy down the road.
So I'll say this: when we view marginalized minorities, and then we view them with a mainstream view.
Right.
We don't view them from the same standpoint that I've been there.
Right.
We see them how society or media or whatever tells us we have to see
They
them.
want to be poor.
So
they want to be criminals.
So the image that is projected of those who are in poverty and all of that, we see that on TV. And then we see the outcome, or we see what people say they look like. And so as a person who's been saturated with that, when we view them like the media views them. I'm gonna tell you guys a poignant moment in my life. I grew up in Musgrave. 3 people have died on death row. I've personally known 2. The reality is this: I happened to be on the TV when they strolled through Musgrave on Catherine Street talking about the gangs and talking about drugs and the poverty. I was a preteen. I'm standing as a no shirt, short pants, no shoes wearing boy on my friend Kawanza Johnson's daddy's truck, who had come to pick up my little brother or drop him off from soccer practice, and to hear them talk about the narrative of my community, and I'm simply saying, I'm just a barefooted, no shirt wearing boy that was outside. But that's how I was viewed.
Yeah.
That's how we push the narrative of white supremacy as black folks.
And it's done in subtle and overt ways. It all depends on what lens you're looking through. You know, if you look through the lens of as to what Pastor McDaniel said earlier, to be true to our authentic selves, we always have to consider our communities and what those communities have had to suffer generationally, and how they're viewed by the larger society. So to Pastor McDaniel's point, the perpetuation of white supremacy and white nationalism and all of these ideas is in fact what those police officers did. The problem is that you have to look at that through so many different categories. It's not just police officers perpetuating the idea, it is black men doing it to black men. For me, it's both and not
both
either.
and. So here's the thing that jumps off the page about what he said, is for a black police officer to hear him say, the system, you gonna do it anyway. The system demands that you do it. I just did 26 years of this, right? And I'm saying there's no way that system that you just described is gonna cause me to dehumanize another human, much less a black man, like they did, right? I say that, but on the other side of that conversation, I guarantee that all 5 of those black police officers watched the George Floyd film and said the same thing I just said.
So we call this situational ethics. And in the moment, they did what they've always done. I'm no police officer. But when the police chief says, first of all, I don't know why he stopped. Secondly, I don't know why they used the excessive force or did what they did. There's no rhyme or reason, if you will, there was some kind of agenda, some kind
Yeah.
of vendetta, potentially. But that's the thing. And so here is what I'll say, and I'll throw the spiritual side into this, is that we don't think more highly of others that we ought to.
Right.
And I know in the realm of policing, how in the world can I think more highly of an individual who's potentially a criminal? But we look at them in such a way that we dehumanize them prior to even doing anything, right? Because we're defending ourselves. And guess what we're defending ourselves from? A ghost. We're defending ourselves from something that hadn't even happened. We're defending ourselves from something that happened with someone else. We're defending ourselves from the image that others have projected about these particular people. And therefore we go into it and we do all the wrong things. And then when it's all over, we say, daggone, that really wasn't right.
And so to your point, the problem is the perception of the criminality of being black in America.
Well,
but that's what that is. So to your point, if I view, even as a police officer, if I view the prime suspect, the image of the criminal, the image of the suspect is an African-American male, then I'm not making the delineation between somebody who steals something and somebody who's not stealing. I see the black male based upon his skin and his gender as criminal. And that to me is what we talked about that day, back to your point. Because if Tyre Nicholas had a football in his hand, if he had a basketball in his hand, if he was running, jumping, or shooting, he would be valued. And to not have any of those things, I'm saying that only in the case. I'm saying that only in the case that for him not to have that, when he doesn't have that, then he's viewed as, oh, he may be a suspect. In this country, that's always the case. That is the problem.
And so this is what he and I argue about.
Yes. Okay.
Because I hate when he uses that, oh, you was an athlete and you get to do this and you get to do that.
But it's true.
And it absolutely is. I hate to agree with him about it, but I know personally I'm probably going to get, but if someone recognizes my name,
yes.
I mean,
yes.
I've lived through it. I'm going to probably, I remember I was in a car crash in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It had to be, I got there in 98. It had to be, I was living in these apartments, so it had to be 99, 2000. Honest story, Officer Cubitt, Lieutenant Cubitt, retired. I'm going east on 61st Street between Sheridan and whatever in Tulsa. I'm trying to turn left. Car hits me from behind, throws me into oncoming traffic. Another car hits me. I spin around. It's pandemonium. The police officer comes. He says, "Hey, how you doing?" I give him my ID. He says, "Hey." He reads my name. He says, "You're Michael McDaniel." I said, "Yes." He says, "You the one that played at OU?" I said, "Yes." He says, were you wearing a seatbelt? I said, "No." He said, "Don't tell nobody else that." I mean, literally.
I'd have gone to jail. I'd have gone to jail. I would have had to call you to come get me.
So I get that, and my desire is for everyone to just be viewed the same way, right? I do understand that.
Utopia.
Right. I don't like him, honestly.
What I've been hearing in a lot of conversations, like I said, this is the first time I've talked publicly about this. This was really an annoyance to me, the Tyre Nicholas thing, because they were black police officers. Because now, what I have been saying for years and years and years, and the last part of my career was in community relations, is what I've been saying is you just got to know the police officers. If you get to know us, we are good men and women. We serve our community. We put on this uniform for all this kind of thing. And what happened was when this happened, a lot of community members saying we need more black police officers in the black community. We need more, all this kind of stuff. And now that just erased that theory that they would love the black community where white police officers don't have the understanding to love as deeply as they could.
Right.
And so they said, so this is now saying to me, see, Mr. Cubitt, you have been talking about the good police officers all this time, and there are good police officers, but you're talking about an individual when we're talking about a system. We do not want to have a conversation about individual problems when our solution should be systematic.
I mean, you know,
But back to what he was saying.
to me, it is. To me, that's the obvious thing. I mean, the system is definitely broken. There's no.
Don't say it was obvious when I just figured it out.
No. I mean,
Don't do me that there.
I mean, it's been broken. It's been broken. You don't want to ask me when it started to be broken. You do not want to ask me that question.
Well, we want to ask you when was it broken on your show?
It was broken in 1619.
Okay. All right.
First 19 got here. It was broken, and it's still broken. As long as the demonization and criminalization of black people exists in this country, the system has always been broken. Do we need to call them? When Fannie Lou Hamer testifies at the Democratic National Committee how she was beaten because she was trying to go vote, it was broken. When Emmett Till was killed in Money, Mississippi, it was broken. I mean, we have these stories. So my thing is, to almost to his son's point, I don't want the defunding of the police. Unlike what I'm not talking. But what
You're not an abolitionist.
I'm an abolitionist, but I'm not an abolitionist in that sense.
Yeah.
I don't want to defund the police. But what we do need is a complete, absolute overhaul of the judicial system in this country. Point blank, period.
What does that look like? Because I do not want to live anywhere, not a city, town, neighborhood, where there's not a church, where there's not police. Because I know the evil that men do.
Yeah.
So
right, but when you talk about abolition, that is, I hear.
Well, be careful of the term abolition, though.
I hear. Stop it.
Right, because abolitionist is a historical
slavery.
term. Right. So I'm not talking about. You want to say abolishment. You want to say abolishing.
I don't even want to say that.
I don't want to do that. For me, I'm not an advocate for that. I agree with you. I believe there does have to be some policing, but do I believe there needs to be oversight on those individuals? No question. Something like that. I don't have the solution to it. What I do know is what we got don't work.
Here's the deal, which we all agree, but I think we're asking a higher moral question. And here's what I mean by that. Is because we do know that laws cannot legislate behavior.
No question.
And what we are asking is for a change of heart. We are asking, and I know, I know it because he's not. So I ain't gonna.
But you're giving human beings more credit for governed behavior. For me, the reason why we have the Civil Rights Bill and the Voting Rights Bill of 64 and 65 is because when people had to count marbles in a jar, we needed the federal government to come say to those states, you can't do that.
Well, I get that. But even when we
you gotta have laws.
You gotta have laws.
No. I'm not
gotta have policy
to govern behavior.
I'm not anti-law. What I'm saying is that you've gotta have the right people to carry out the law. That's all I'm saying, because when you have a group of people, because you know and I know that there's a letter of the law and there is a spirit of a law.
I understand.
And we got laws that if you follow by the letter and not by the spirit, it will render injustice.
Yeah, but
here's the other piece. When judges sit in those seats and they render judgment, there are those who can render a judgment on the spirit or the letter, and then they can determine to give grace or to give latitude in these renderings, that if you don't have the right people there with the right mindset, consciousness, whatever, I don't think you get what you're asking for.
I disagree wholeheartedly.
Okay.
Because to me, the argument...
I don't.
Well, that's fine. Because I don't believe that. I do get your point. I believe this is an issue regarding states' rights and federal government. Because the reason why the issues that we have faced historically in the community have been as a result of the states overseeing the laws and policies that we exist under.
Sure.
And when you have individuals in office, from the governor to the mayor to the state superintendent, who operate in malicious ways, vicious ways, the federal government tries to come in. You got a situation now where you have a state superintendent who's rejecting federal funds for public education. In this state, we need federal intervention. I need the federal government to come in and say, stop Oklahoma, stop Mississippi, stop Georgia. That's what, and so people argue back and forth on that because at the end of the day, for me, I'm an advocate for that.
So when our state government refuses and they vote to give credence to minimizing federal government influence in state government, guess what you have? The same bull. And so literally what you're going to have are individuals who decide that there is a higher moral expectation requirement. You still need the human heart to show up in some of these situations. Now, I hear what you're saying.
In this capitalistic democratic
the heart has to guide. Our values have to guide our policy.
But so many of our values are so different. And
they're not that different.
Well, but hold on.
They're not that different.
We used to believe that a Christian is governed by this.
Well,
right?
wait a minute now. You getting in trouble now.
They're not that different.
A believer or whatever. You would say that if we're of this ilk, then this is what we believe. But there is such
values are varied now.
That's what I'm saying. They're very different depending on where you are and where you're from and all that kind of stuff. So to say that we are part of one central group does not mean that we all identify with the same values. That's the only point I'm trying to make.
You have expectations of a fallen nature that I don't have.
And I do know
I don't have expectations.
Yeah.
I live in America. And the America that I live in, George Floyd was killed.
Down with dope.
Tamir Rice was
and
killed.
Up with hope.
Sandra Bland was killed.
Rainbow Coalition.
Hey man, I got a litany of people that were killed.
I'm with you.
Yeah, okay. So I feel like there needs to be a master class, right? You're talking about historical policy and stuff that
yes.
sets up. So for me as the police officer, I know that my grandmother, my mother, my dad, my cousins, my uncles, they live in an area where violent crime,
yes,
the statistics are high.
Yes.
My Hispanic friends, statistics of the violent crime is high. So shouldn't the police chief send resources to protect my family? Shouldn't he send the resources there? Right?
So here's what I learned, and this is credit to A. Byron Coleman. I'm from an impoverished area. I grew up. And I'm a lofty thinker in that humanity can play an integral part in the transformation of community. But as I read Margins,
Might from the Margins,
here's what I discovered. That if you take bread and you take jobs and opportunities
yes.
from that community,
yes.
What you're going to get is a devastated community.
Yes.
Because they don't have what they need.
You've been reading.
And then we label it as black on black crime.
Yes.
When in fact, crime is proximity oriented.
Yes.
So we never call it white on white crime, even though crime is committed in white communities.
Yes.
We've just labeled it as such. But when you have communities of poverty and they don't have what they need, ultimately, they will turn on each other. And we gotta
here's the thing, but as soon as I make that argument, they're gonna point to you two.
And say what?
You see that neighborhood that you just came from, that you just described?
Yeah.
You're a leader now. You got these degrees. You did it.
He got more than me.
You did it. You did it. So don't tell me that the resources and the opportunity was not in your zip code.
But here's the deal, and I'll say this for me. If I was to go through and tell my story about the relatives that I grew up with that were closest to me, let's just take me and two of my cousins who we are 1 year apart. 1 year the oldest, the other two of us are the same age. Both of them have done 15 years behind bars. I did none. Why? Because I was an athlete. I discovered the dope man took care of me when I was in Oklahoma City. I would tell y'all his name. Some of y'all would know him. He owned a club next door to us back when it was back in the day when it was the Odyssey. When stuff was going down in my neighborhood, dope was being sold and stuff was happening, he would tell me, take your butt home. You need something? He would give me money to make sure that I wasn't on the street trying to sell or do any of those things. He took me to my first NBA game where I saw the LA Lakers play the Dallas Mavericks with Roy Tarpley and Rolando Blackman and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson. He made sure that I never needed a thing because the hood recognized that I had talent. But that don't happen for everybody.
And the problem with
I'll
this,
give him that.
So my narrative is, I mean, you know, my father went to Vietnam. He was in the Marines. And when he got back in Chicago, it was only but so many jobs that black men could get in Chicago. Post office, United Parcel Service, or work the factory. My father went to work at United Parcel Service. The fact that I had a father, let me just begin with that. And he was as hard as a Marine could get, and did not go to college, and did not get an education, didn't get a degree, but made sure that I got one. And anomalies are a bad example. Anomalies are a bad example. And once again, what the statement you made usually comes from those who look through that lens. Right? And so I tell people anomalies are a bad example. When I'm to his point, destruction in the community is happening at mass numbers. Our kids academically across the board in the state of Oklahoma are significantly behind in math, science, and reading. Literally, we have a significant number of black children that are not prepared for college.
I want you both to deal. I got a friend that I know, if not watching right now, will watch. And I want to point him to this question right here. The problem with the black community, this is a statement I want you to deal with. I'm not saying this, I'm just repeating. The problem with the black community, in all honesty, is the breakdown of the black family. Deal with that statement.
I just preached on that Sunday.
Uh-oh.
Well, you go.
All right.
I just preached on that Sunday. So
Daddy's not staying in the home.
This
is what they're saying.
Let me make the statement that I put in my sermon, I put it in there Sunday. The two institutions that have historically survived since when I went back to Africa, but that have historically survived in our community are the black church and black family. We have adapted and we still have overcome. It is disrespectful to me to dishonor a black woman who raised children by herself. That's disrespectful because that black woman has adapted and raised her children. Our communities do that. We've always survived. Are we complicated? Yes. Are we complex? No question. But have we kept going? The next generation and the next generation. There are single mothers that have raised superstars, that have raised athletes and business people. It is disrespect. We have to stop using the language of the dominant culture to talk about single-led households. Some of these single sisters are raising positive black children. And that to me has to be said. I'm not going to use the language they use. 70% of homes are single family homes. And we've always adapted and we've always survived. That honors the tradition that I talked about at the beginning. That honors that legacy. It's yes, there are mass numbers of African American men in prison. Yes, there are mass numbers of African American men who are not in the house. Yes, but guess what? Those sisters that are at that house raising their children, they should be honored and respected and not made to feel as if they're less because they don't have a man in the house.
I saw that statistic, by the way, not too long ago. I think I read it this week, matter of fact, or last week. 1 in 3 African American males will have a criminal record.
Yes.
Compared to 1 in 17.
And that's not the problem with the community. That's over policing.
Well, so I don't even necessarily want to blame it on over policing, but here's what I want to say is that we find so much solace in statistics, right?
Right.
We derive our thought processes from it. Now, as you mentioned earlier, that an anomaly is not a good thing to base your judgment on.
Right.
I will agree with you, and I think what I hear you saying is that I'm not going to ignore the facts, but I am going to say to you that we have literally overcome. And so to say, I think there is a set of standards by which we use that are not always applicable to every group.
Right.
We are using some general standards, just like the health disparities, right? So when I go to the doctor to be 6'1" and 200 and whatever pounds, I'm unhealthy. but I don't think that those general standards are for who I am.
Right.
And so I think, just like education, I don't think that formal education, in my personal opinion, is the panacea. Because I believe that there are other alternatives that young men and women can have great success. And also, I think reason why some of our schools are failing, and in general, is because we're holding up a standard of something that our kids are not ever going to be able to meet or to reach. I'm not saying you dumb down anything. I'm saying that there has to be some alternative ways to educate our kids, because that's not happening. Because, and then I'll tell you this, we are overdiagnosed in a sense of diseases, but here's the thing, we are probably really underdiagnosed because we don't really know what's Junior's problem. Autism and all these other things are underdiagnosed in our kids because it takes money to really find out what happens.
Or over-medicated.
Or over-medicated. And so we don't have it. But even I've learned in this resiliency information, this ACE score, adverse childhood experiences, so now this medication, the trauma that they have, really only induces their trauma or their reaction to their trauma because they have not been rightfully diagnosed. It is super complex, and I think that we are trying to, in a real sense, throw general health things at it when it really takes something different, and it's going to take us thinking outside of the box, doing something abnormal to say, hey, this is going to be a track for our kids, right? And I think we really need to evaluate what we're doing, because I don't know if we're helping. I think we are compounding the issue in a real sense.
So what I want to say, the takeaway from the men's group, what I felt, that we just scratched the surface, and all of these things are so deep, right? It takes a lot to unpack the 1964 and 65, those things in policy and how they impact us today. It takes a lot for us to unpack Black Lives Matter. Right, and when they come back with no, all lives matter. You're pastors, you got to say all lives matter. But
go ahead.
Right, yeah, right. Because when they said all men were created equal, we had the meaning of all was not. We still haven't got all considered right. And so when we say Black Lives Matter, that needs to be unpacked some. So it's just a deeper issue. But I don't think here's what I like to see. I like for you to do that conversation again. But I also want to include the dominant culture. I feel like they should hear what I heard.
Let's go.
I feel like they should hear what I heard.
He's never met an argument. Matter of fact, it was Chris Harris who sent me a video when you was out there about to fight the Black Hebrew Israelites. Like, your wife is holding you by your shirt, like, come on, Byron, let's go. He biting at the bit to fight anything.
Never argument I want that, baby. Come on, boy, let's go.
But I think there's some value in having, because I felt like we were in the barbershop. And when we're in the barbershop, if somebody from outside the culture comes in, we kind of change the conversation, but this wouldn't have changed, right? I think people were really bold. There were some real feelings. There was some real trauma.
Can I add this? I think that you need to lift the herd analogy that you raised that day. That is the most powerful analogy. I've used that 2 other times. I think that analogy that you said I shared it with Chris Harrison. This is...
Okay.
I've never heard that.
Yeah. So what brought that thought line of thinking on? So let me set it up a little, put it in some context. Is
our favorite show.
Our favorite show.
They're heathens, people.
Our favorite show. I'm gonna make reference to our favorite show.
Yellowstone and P-Valley.
Yellowstone. I'm gonna make reference. But here's what made me start thinking this way: is I'm visiting, and I'm at a private school, and there's some students that are middle class to upper class, and I'm the speaker, and they're talking about criminal justice reform. And I'm the guest speaker. And these, what I would classify, even in my younger days, I classify as rich, but they may not have been rich, but they ain't in poverty. These kids are not from, they're two-parent household, they're okay. They're in private school. And they say to me, one says, Mr. Cubitt, the police scares me. Why? Why do the police scare you? He says, when I see the car, when I see them around, when I discover, they create anxiety. In fact, I was in a car wreck. me and my sister in a car wreck, and we contemplated whether or not it would be helpful to call the police. That bothered me. I said, I put the uniform on to make people feel the exact opposite of that. And if these kids are feeling that, then I need to think about, all of law enforcement. They didn't say Oklahoma City Police Department, they didn't say Village, they said the police. That means uniforms, cars, just being around the police created anxiety that they were looking for the bad in them, not to serve them. That bothers me, because I know so many men and women that put the uniform on to create the opposite feeling. And so as I'm contemplating this, I watched an episode of Yellowstone, and then I'm going back all of these. There's 5 seasons. I watched 5 seasons in a very short time.
Enjoyed
me and my wife just
Enjoyed yourself.
Enjoyed myself.
I've never seen it, people.
Yeah, but here's the thing. And I don't know everything I know about ranching, even from Oklahoma. I've learned from Yellowstone by now, right? And these cowboys, their everyday existence, their whatever they do, was all about taking care of the herd. They woke up every morning. They checked to see if they had resources. They checked to see what pasture they needed to go to. They see if they was healthy, if there was a disease, which ones were pregnant, if they were marked properly, so they didn't mix in with the wrong. They did all that stuff. And if the wolf came around, because the wolf was a natural predator to the herd, they got the rifles out. They didn't play anything with the wolf, right? But I recognized after watching 5 seasons of this is that the cowboy, even though he hates the wolf, he never hunted the wolf. He never went out hunting the wolf.
Yeah.
He was so focused on the herd.
That's right.
Yeah.
He was so in tune to what the herd needed, what the herd was going through.
That's right.
That if the wolf presented itself, he would pick that up not from the wolf itself, but from the way the herd acted.
That's right.
Right? The one time in the show that they got in trouble, they went out hunting the wolf.
Wrong wolf.
And they shot the wrong wolf. And then I think about Tyre Nicholas. As the Scorpion unit is out, instead of focusing on the herd, they were out hunting the wolf. And they mistaked a dog for a wolf. Right? They shot the wrong one. They attacked the wrong one. I'm saying, what if we as law enforcement just reimagine our role, not put our rifles away, but focused on the herd?
Yeah.
Powerful.
Right?
I want to say a couple of things.
Okay.
One, that reminds me of being a shepherd.
Yeah.
The shepherd's primary goal is the sheep.
Yeah.
He's not hunting the lion, but he knows that the lion
Exists.
is a predator.
Yeah.
But his main goal is to protect the sheep.
Yeah.
I want to say this, that uniform has a different identity in every community. And so in some communities, it is not a helpful uniform. In others, they welcome it. In others, they disdain it.
Yes.
And then thirdly, to invite the mainstream culture to the conversation brings me back to an illustration that I read in Mike from the Margins. When T'Challa dies at the hands, supposedly dies at the hands of M'Baku, and Queen Mother has to go up in the mountains to now, to use them as an ally.
Right.
When the white FBI agent begins to talk,
Who has solutions and ideas.
everybody says,
shut up.
because he goes on to say that the mainstream culture, you are invited to the table, but learn before you speak.
That's right.
Yeah. I like that.
rough.
Here's the thing too about the analogy of the cowboy and that herd is, even though me, the cowboy or the shepherd, despise the wolf, I recognize that he too has value. In the sense that some people make pets out of wolves. Right? I just you do that. Just don't mess with the herd.
But even if you don't make a pet out of the wolf, here's what the wolf does. He makes you live at a level of awareness that you would not have if the wolf wasn't out there.
That's called being black in America.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
So please tell me, y'all got a lot going on at your church. Tell me what's next at your church that the community needs to know about, that we need to be connected to. How do we get plugged in? What's next? I know we got Easter.
Go ahead, Byron.
Well, I know this. First of all, we value it. Pastor McDaniel and
this is PG compared to our conversation. I guarantee you.
You bring that nonsense from Northeast and Musgrave and say, I'm a holy man. That obviously these conversations you and I have, Pastor McDaniel, of course, with Cubit, these are conversations that need to be had in public as well. I think there are more people that would enjoy and learn and glean from our conversations, because I think we come from two totally different perspectives, but somehow we converge and meet when we're finished at the same place. So Fifth Street, 801 Northeast Fifth Street. That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. Show up.
Just show up.
Show up. All the celebrities go to these two churches.
No, they all go to these churches.
They go to these two churches. I look up and there's an NFL guy sitting in my church.
Oh yeah.
That's only because I did chapel at OU one day, and then they came. But I'll say this about Coleman Cubit as we wrap up and conclude. He's helped me to understand that my value as a black man and my love for my culture does not mean I'm anti-mainstream culture.
No, absolutely not.
Well, but I think sometimes if you're not rooted in it, you somehow minimize who you are on some level to make others feel comfortable. He and I talked about these series of sermons that I've preached over this month, and this whole idea of hooping and all of that in our cultural sermons. And he used the word of self-hate. I got to be honest, I hadn't heard the word used that much other than being around him until I started reading certain things that really identified that maybe I was self-hating a tiny bit, because I was a little bit uncomfortable to say this or that in front of mainstream. But I've really grown in that regard. And we're very different, but I really love just the things that happen and transpire in our conversations. And so, yes, we're at Northeast Missionary Baptist Church, and listen, we're doing the best we can to serve the community that we're a part of. And so, and I love every bit of it.
You need to come in our conversations, because we
literally
is. I mean, two different.
You would almost think we were the enemy.
Right.
I'll come referee, but I have a little experience in breaking things up.
So some would say, and I know you're trying. I am not. I said to Pastor McDaniel,
he's lying. Whatever's about to come out.
Completely, absolutely radical. And my friend Chris Harrison, I tell people, I am unapologetically black and unashamedly a Christian. I love God and I love my culture, and the two do not run up against each other. They can coexist in the same space. I come from people who love themselves, who love the culture, who love the traditions, and no way, shape, or form that they conflict with me loving God.
So I'm gonna tell you this, and I'm done. Honestly,
this is how all sermons end.
Right.
They never end. They never end. We just keep closing and closing and closing.
But what I will say is this: is that I think we cannot, when we talk about he and I, or people like he and I, his northern influence.
Right.
Like, let's go back to civil rights. When everybody goes north, there is a different mentality, culture, understanding than that of the South. And I think what we are experiencing with each other is really that. That took place years ago, but we're living it out.
I will tell you that I don't know how many black friends that I've met that came here from someplace else as adults and immediately said to me, I got to get out of Oklahoma City. I got to get out of Oklahoma. And the reason they said that.
Hey, he been trying to get out.
No. But he did it for 25 years. Don't say that.
And the reason they said it, the reason when I dive into the reason why they say it is because you all just go along with all of this stuff. You are some come along black folks. And I didn't understand that. I did not understand that. I still don't understand that.
I've enjoyed being on your show.
I have a hard time understanding
justified
that.
by 25 years of living there.
You can. I don't.
This is
what
the
they tell me.
conversation we had the
Exact
other
same
day.
conversation.
I don't understand it, but maybe you can help. Give me something to read.
No, let
I'll
somebody
give you something to read.
let somebody else
Oh, I
explain
give you
to you.
something to read.
Don't let him explain.
I give you something to read.
I want to say thank you to Barry and Big Smoke for Hey,
Thanks
Big
to Barry.
Smoke, word is.
Shout out to Heritage Funeral Home, Chris Harrison.
Chris
is here.
Harrison, shout out. He's a
Hey, Chris,
loyal
I need
watcher and
$20,
listener.
Chris. I need $20.
He's
Maybe
here.
these shoes.
Thank you so much for. Please share this conversation and go back and unpack it. Honestly, there's so many clips that I got to put on Instagram and Twitter because they're just dropping wisdom and things to think about over and over and over. So thank you so much for being on Conversations with Cupid with us tonight. We'll see you next week. That's good.